Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is the first of many Outriders videos, and we're going to be looking at build diversity within the game that we can see already from the demo, and using the skills, classes and the legendary weapons that we've seen so far. Builds in this game are going to be really diverse. Each class is going to be having maybe 2 to 3, potentially 4 builds within it, which is going to be really cool. So we're going to recap the legendary weapons first, leave 4 weapons to the end that I think would be perfect for each class. So I'm going to give you 4 builds, 1 for each class. So the Trickster class, Technomancer, Pyromancer and the Devastator. So when you pick up the game on April 1st, it'll give you an idea of what you can aim for in whichever particular class that you choose. And if you do enjoy today's Outriders video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Outriders content, because those who have been subscribed to the channel for a while will know that I cover Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is made by Square Enix, who are also the developers of this game. And also I cover Tom Clancy's The Division, so very much another looter shooter style game. So please do subscribe for more Outriders content. And finally, I do have a Discord server which is going to have a dedicated section for Outriders. So if you do feel like jumping in and speaking to the other 100 people in there, and obviously interacting with other Outriders, you'll find the link to that in the description below. And with that being said, let's get into today's Outriders video. And yeah, this video is basically going to be covering legendary weapons that we've seen so far, but also build diversity that I can kind of see happening around some of those legendary weapons. So we'll skim over the legendary weapons and then we'll look at 4 specific ones, and basically it's going to be a way of how you can build your characters early game, hopefully give you that bit of advantage, because obviously when the game opens up you're going to get more of these skills like level 9, 13, 17 and 22, but more importantly these class skill, I'm going to call these skill trees, because Final Fantasy, which is made by Square Enix, they had something pretty similar when you were building characters, and they used to call it a skill tree. So these class abilities, let's put it as well, you can see Vanquisher, Warden and Seismic Shifter for the Devastator class that I'm on at the moment. They've got basically 3 branches to go off. So there's a lot of things I've seen within these, there's a lot of things that I've seen within the skills and the legendary weapons, and obviously the gear that are going to show a lot when it comes to build diversity within this game. It's not just going to be a case of one character with all the same abilities. There's going to be 2 or 3, maybe even 4 potential variants of each class. So yeah. Okay, so the first legendary weapon up at the moment is the Grim Marrow Legendary Light Machine Gun. Now, as you can see, this is only a level 4 item, so obviously as you level up, I don't know if you're going to be able to upgrade these legendary weapons. I presume you can. I assume you'll be able to, but obviously these stats are going to be a lot higher, but I'm more interested in the mods at the bottom. So this one comes with Singularity. Killing shots create an anomaly Singularity. When destroyed, the Singularity explodes, dealing 240 damage to enemies within a 6.5 meter radius. And then improved stiffening. Shots inflict slow on enemies, cooldown of 4 seconds. So this weapon for me is going to be a very good crowd control weapon. It's going to be slowing down enemies, it's going to be grouping them up, and obviously killing an enemy is going to start a chain reaction of exploding damage. For me, without looking into the classes obviously further afield past level 7, I can't really tell if this is going to be a class specific legendary weapon, so we'll move on to the next one. Next one we've got is Amber Vault. Now this is a legendary double gun, and the mods on this is killing shots increase damage by 30% for the weapon for 30 seconds. Bonus deteriorates with time and stacks up to 5 kills. And then it's got Brain Eater. Critical shots do not consume ammo. But again, this particular legendary, without being able to scope past level 7, I can't see if it's going to be a class based legendary or not. So again, we'll move on to the next one. The next one's called the Migraine, which is a legendary submachine gun, and the mods are Ultimate Bleeding Bullets. Shots inflict bleed on an enemy, and bombs ahead. Killing shots turn enemies into an anomaly bomb, dealing 101 damage, cooldown of 3 seconds. So obviously this is going to be some type of status effects weapon. There are builds where you can use toxic bullets and, you know, elements and things. So, and again, there's not really much to go off of. This is going to be a class specific one, so we'll move on to the next one. Torment and Agony pistols. Now, I've got these myself. These are pretty cool. But again, you know, Judgment Enforcer. Shots mark enemies when reloading. Deal 5 times your weapon's damage to every marked enemy. Marks are removed when you change your weapon. Clip Combustion. Reloading weapons creates a shockwave, dealing 25 damage to enemies within 5 meter radius. Now, the Thunderbird Legendary Assault Rifle comes with Ultimate Storm Whip. Shots bring down lightning on an enemy, dealing 25 damage. And Striker, I want to say, 30% of critical hit damage returns to you as health. The Voodoo Matchmaker. Now, obviously, straight away, you know, there's flames coming off it. Surely this has got to be connected to the Pyromancer class a little bit. But the abilities don't really kind of marry up with that. Ultimate Damage Link. Shots link up to 2 enemies, sharing 30% of the weapon damage dealt and 10% of their anomaly damage dealt. And then Vulnerability Bullets. Shots inflict vulnerable on enemies, cooldown of 8 seconds. Again, I can't really tie that to a class, but we're going to move on to 4 weapons now that I feel shows the build diversity of this game. And we're going to start with the Iceberg. So the Iceberg Legendary Bolt Action Rifle. As you can see, it's got some type of freeze camo on it. And I clearly think this is obviously going to be a weapon that you're going to be using with the Technomancer class. Now let's talk about the mods first. So Winter Blast. Critical shots create an icy blast that inflicts freeze on enemies within a 4 meter radius. And then Icebreaker. Killing shots against frozen enemies makes them explode, dealing 90 damage. So if you've played with the Technomancer class, you'll know you've got a skill there called Cryo Turret. And it's a gadget that you place on the floor and it automatically deals damage and inflicts freeze onto enemies. Now, that married with this weapon, and obviously we don't know what these weapons here are going to be, but we do know using the Technomancer there's going to be a skill tree and a build based around freeze and obviously improving that type of damage. So Technomancer is a sniper based and long ranged class. So what you're going to want to do is you want to be wanting to hold enemies off while you're sniping away so they can't push you. So the Cryo Turret helps with that. So let's go over to the class. Now if we take a look over on the Demolisher skill tree, you see this. Souls 56 freezing tanks. Freeze afflicted on enemies lasts 20% longer. So that is going to marry perfect with that Cryo Turret. It's going to work well with the Iceberg Legendary Bolt Action Rifle. So I think this is definitely a build that I'm going to be putting together where I'm trying to freeze enemies for obviously all my teammates to mow down. And obviously me being able to stay at a distance when I'm soloing or just when I'm in a team. Both ways work well. Another talent here, Exposing Frost. Every time freeze is inflicted on an enemy, the vulnerable status is inflicted as well. So obviously you're going to be able to deal more damage to enemies that are obviously affected by freeze. Again, by the looks of this particular build using this particular weapon, this is going to be a really good route to take. And just off Exposing Frost here, marked for execution, vulnerable afflicted on an enemy is 40% more effective. So they're going to be really vulnerable after that. And just above it, you've got another Souls 56 freezing tanks mod. Freeze afflicted on enemy lasts 20% longer. Again, just over here, Fracture. Enemies inflicted with freeze receive 30% more damage. And just back here, there is another Fracture mod. Enemies inflicted with freeze receive 10% more damage. Now, that's just a quick look over one class, but obviously all these little elements of freeze, you know, freeze lasts longer, freeze lasts longer. The build diversity is starting to come into shape now. And obviously across this top one here, it's just all weapon damage and things, so you're obviously going to build into that and pick up all these freeze nodes to obviously complement the Iceberg sniper rifle. And obviously when we get further into the game, some of the gear is going to have talents on it. So at the moment, as you can see, I've got a talent here on the Vagrant's coat with the Cryo Turret, increases the turret's damage based on your status power. So legendary gear and epic gear are obviously going to have better talents, again to synergize with a freeze build. Anyway, moving on to the next legendary weapon, I want to look at Golem's Limb. Now, I'm not going to lie, this weapon has actually got me the most excited. My favourite class to use at the moment is the Devastator, and this particular weapon marries up perfectly well with this Devastator class. Now, Golem's Limb. Golems Rising. Killing shots grant you a protective golem effect for 3 seconds. Now, for those who don't know, Golem is one of the assigned Devastator skills, and basically it fortifies yourself against 65% of incoming damage. So killing an enemy is going to give you 65% mitigation, basically, for 3 seconds. If you're up close and personal with this weapon, and obviously the class setup that I'm going to show you, you're going to be killing people pretty quick. Obviously, the damage is 125 at level 9. I think other shotguns off the top of my head are nowhere near that. I think the damage is around 30 damage for a level 9 weapon. So you can imagine having a maxed out Golem's limb, doing that amount of damage up close and personal. Obviously, you're going to be killing a lot. You're going to be giving yourself that 65% damage mitigation. So an unbelievable mod to have on a weapon. And secondly, Vampire. Killing shots grant 15% skill leech boost for 20 seconds. So for those who don't know what skill leech is, it's basically the incoming heal that you get from killing an enemy. So this game gives you HP every time you kill someone. Some abilities and some classes vary. Some of it's just maybe damage based, but some of it is on kill. So if you imagine people who play the Division, that'll be basically 15% armor on kill or health on kill. So just to give you an idea of how that works. So obviously with this gun, you're going to be building into a tank build where you're leeching HP. So let's look into the skills and the class setup. So obviously the Devastator is a tank, and you're going to be wanting to build into some type of armor and leech build. So straight away on the Seismic Shifter skill tree, Rejuvenation increases your skill leech by 6%. This one's a pretty decent one to look at as well, called Paladin, and it's a protection. So using protection skills increases anomaly power by 45% for 10 seconds. Now, obviously we don't know if that's going to kick in if we're triggering Golem with the Golem's Limb shotgun. I assume we're not, because you're not technically using a skill, but it would be interesting just to keep an eye on that particular skill. You've got an increase your health node there, Colossus. You've got Pure Anomaly, increases your resistance piercing by 15%. There's another tanky type of, obviously, mod that you can put on. This one's a decent skill to have as well. Stone Circle extends the distance considered to be close range by additional 4 meters. So basically, you're dealing more damage with your shotgun from an extra 4 meters away. Because I don't know if you've noticed, the drop off on damage is noticeable. So if you're not up close and personal, you're not going to get that damage with a shotgun. Another Rejuvenation node, increasing skill leech by 6%. An increase armor by 20% and resistance by 20% node. And you know, this particular skill tree is a lot of health, armor, resistance. So I'll let you look through all that. I suppose this is a HP leech kind of talent. Overlord of the Battleground gain additional 10% health for each enemy that died at close range. So killing somebody close range is going to give you 10% health. Dry them out, increase weapon leech by 5%. Another one, increasing weapon leech by 5%. And obviously the rest of the nodes, just like the other classes, are built around weapon damage, health, armor, resistance, and things like that. So if you're marrying up the Golem's Limb with the Devastator class, and then building into, obviously, skill leech and obviously, you know, armor on kill and things like that, you're going to be a really tanky class, and it's probably going to be the go-to for people in the beginning until they get used to the game. Because I must admit, out of the 4 classes that I built, I wasn't taking much damage with this class. I wasn't going down as much as, like, say, the Pyromancer, for instance. So for me, if you're picking up the game on April 1st and you don't really know much about it, I would go with this class. And yeah, you can see how a tank stroke leech build within the Devastator class would be really worthwhile. Now, moving on to the second to last legendary weapon I want to talk about today is the RAROG'S Gaze. Now, straight away, this is obviously going to be based around the Pyromancer class, because the talents are Weakness Trap. Shots cause explosions, dealing 46 damage and inflicting weakness on enemies within a 5 meter radius of the target. Cooldown is 3 seconds. But the second mod is Burning Bullets. Shots inflict burn on an enemy. Cooldown of 8 seconds. So obviously that's only rank 1. I'm gathering at rank 3 it might be a cooldown of 3 seconds. So every other person that you shoot, you're setting on fire. Now obviously Pyromancer, fire-based build. I don't really need to explain that one to you, but we'll take a brief look at this one. So under skills, obviously everything is based on fire. Heatwave inflicts burn to all enemies that it hits. Overheat, again, burns anybody within the radius. Thermal bomb, select an enemy to burn. So if you're fighting a boss, maybe target the boss, get him burned, deal damage with the RAROG'S gaze. Moving on to the class. So obviously Pyromancer, just using a majority of the skills gives you 45% more weapon damage for 10 seconds. And you know, the cooldown on these skills is pretty quick. So you're going to be keeping your weapon damage up by 45% quite a lot. As you can see, these little flame nodes, meltdown, burn inflicted on an enemy deals 20% more damage. Above them, let them burn. Burn inflicted on enemies lasts 20% longer. Over here, meltdown, burn inflicted on enemies deals another 20% more damage. Over here, burn inflicted on enemies lasts 20% longer. Inferno bullets, your firepower is increased by 15% of your anomaly power. So obviously your anomaly power is fire, so that's an extra 15% damage. Incinerate, the moment burn ends on an enemy, it inflicts the ash status. And again, across the top is a lot of weapon damage stuff and obviously, you know, armor based stuff. So the RAROG'S Gaze is going to be a great burn build to look into upon release. And finally, the AERIE Master. Now, this is going to be based around a particular class, and the only class we haven't covered is the Trickster class. Now, weightlessness, shots inflict time rift on enemies. Time rift raises the enemies in the air for 5 seconds. Critical point increases the enemy's chance of scoring a critical shot by 15%. Now, I'm not going to lie, it doesn't scream out Trickster for me, but there was just a few elements of obviously that weightlessness mod that I could kind of build into a Trickster build. So for those who don't know, the Trickster class is based around teleport and slow down enemies, you know. So obviously hunt the prey here, select an enemy and teleport behind them, receiving 54 shield bonus. So you get a shield bonus, and obviously you can teleport towards them, as you can see there on screen now. So for me, the AERIE Master, so I would use hunt the prey, get in behind them, shoot them, inflicting time rift, which obviously raises them into the air for 5 seconds, and then you can either get back out or you can even finish them. I'm gathering that they'd be immobilized, they wouldn't be able to shoot back while they were in the air. But also, if you obviously went into a crowd of a lot of people, you could use slow trap to slow them down, and obviously while they're floating about. So it's going to be all based around time, movement, I suppose, living up to the name Trickster, just toying with your enemies. So let's take a quick look at the class. So against all odds, when surrounded by enemies, reloading your weapon deals 17 damage and interrupts enemies' abilities. Damage scales with anomaly power. So obviously if you're running into a group of people, you're shooting them, you're using the slow trap, you're using obviously weightlessness, and then you reload and you're dealing 17 extra damage to the people around you. There's a lot of obviously close range weapon damage bonuses up at the top. There's even a movement skill, increases your armor piercing by 15%. So these are all the little things that you're going to go for. Activated movement skills increases your weapon damage by 50% for 8 seconds. Altered Executioner, for each enemy in close range your anomaly power is increased by 10%. And yeah, it's not as clear cut as the others, but you can see how slowing your enemies down with your skills, inflicting time rift and things like that, and then obviously improving all your like movements and deception skill abilities is going to work well. Anyway, I know it's been a bit of a long one, but I just wanted to take a really in-depth look at build diversity within this game. I think personally myself, I'm going to go along the route of the Devastator. There's a few builds that I want to try out there. I did start off with the Trickster, so I will be looking at that too. So Devastator and Trickster for me, they look like they'll be the most fun builds. But anyway, as I say, this has been a long one. I'll let you go. If you did enjoy this Outriders video though, and you do want to see more Outriders content, please hit that like button and subscribe. And with that being said, take care.